It's been a summer of record-breaking temperatures here in Europe, causing droughts and sparking devastating wildfires. While the latest heat dome has dissipated, the damage remains as the continent continues to be the fastest warming globally. To discuss this further, we can bring in Stefan Eye-cot, professor of sociology at the University of Hamburg. Stefan, thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for
Now,
having me.
there are upcoming elections next year here in France and at least 7 other European countries. So are politicians doing enough to take climate change into account in their campaign platforms?
Absolutely not at the moment. I think what we have seen this summer is a stark contrast between, on the one hand, the heat waves, the extreme events. From June to July, we had the hottest June, for example, in France on record. July was the hottest month ever on record in France. We have had several thousands of heat deaths, and we are still counting. And if you imagine this kind of toll in any other kind of event, be it terrorism, be it a public health problem, we would have immediate programs, emergency reactions, etc. We have had, and this is not specific to France, Germany, where I live, has experienced the same, really a silence of politicians at the first. Now it's commencing really, and we have to also remember that, a rollback of environmental and climate regulations since approximately 2024 on the European level in France and Germany. So while the climate crisis has been escalating, political response is weakening.
Now, is this something that voters are pushing for, to see their candidates, campaign more on green initiatives, or are they getting tired because with this comes additional costs? So where are they at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there are many public surveys that try to look at different voter groups. I know, for example, from Germany that generally when you look at voters from specific parties, they will judge their party as doing not enough for climate change rather than doing too much. Then again, there are some measures that have been widely unpopular, and so it's very important to calibrate the measures and to communicate them well. We have had controversies over measures such as eco-taxes. In Germany, it was the heating law. In France, the agricultural policies. We have had the farmers' protests. So there are measures that are controversial. There are other measures that are much less controversial. So very concretely, renewables still are very, very popular. And expanding electric vehicle, expanding renewables, expanding cooling houses, greening cities. These are very concrete measures that still have very large popular support.
Now, Stefan, I want to talk about a controversy here in France for a moment. The French president, he found himself in hot water after photos of him jet skiing on his summer holiday in the Riviera landed on the cover of Paris Match. And this was going on while there were devastating wildfires ravaging the country. So many, criticized this. They said it was sending the wrong message. So does something like that, does that erode trust in politicians to tackle these crises?
Absolutely, and I think it shows that, we have a lot of programs, adaptation programs. I think the French adaptation program, for example, has 52 measures, 200 concrete measures that are, but somehow we miss the sense of urgency and the mindset of global warming being a society-changing event. If again, this would have been a terrorist attack, to name an example. We would have been sure that all politicians from the highest level would have been on television, would have been interrupting their holidays in order to speak to the public, in order to make announcements of what will happen now, because voters would demand this. in the case of climate change, we don't have these kinds of reactions. And I think it's a big problem. It's a communication problem. It's a political problem. It's that the depth of the crisis has not been understood yet. And Emmanuel Macron's photos on the jet ski are really a symptom of this.
And now, so Stefan, then what resources are available to politicians and voters when it comes to putting climate change back front and center?
It's a very tricky question, or let's say it's the million-dollar question, because we know enough. Actually, we have the scientific knowledge. There's no fundamental lack of knowledge. We know broadly what to do. I think the problem is one of long-term transformation of our societies, both on to adapt to climate change, but also to mitigate climate change, to reduce emissions, to become a carbon neutral, carbon-free societies. And the political problem of this is, of course, that it is a long-term challenge, but that these heat waves, these catastrophes are there to warn us punctually that this is an enormous problem. But in between those alerts that nature gives us, the political pressure has to be kept up. And we see, for example, when there are public mobilizations, to remind the youth mobilizations, 2018, 2019, 2020, then we had actually political measures. We had the Green Deal in the European Union. We had some of the most important environmental regulations, climate regulations that are still in place today that have been adopted at that time. So we need knowledge, but we need especially also political pressure. Civil society has to act on these issues to remind politicians that they have to act on climate change. I think it's also one really important level or a scale of action is the local level, because the local level is where climate change becomes most tangible, where you see the effects of climate change, but also where you see the benefits of some of the climate policies. Again, greening cities, for example, is good for climate adaptation. It's also good for mitigating climate change. And it's something that the citizens will enjoy when they have more green, when they have more parks, when they have cooler spaces. So these kinds of measures on the local level, I think, are a very good point to begin.
Now, Stefan, do we have any concrete examples of policies that have actually already worked, and could they be scalable for other countries? I'm thinking about using heat reflecting paint that's been tried in some European cities. So, are those sorts of policies effective?
We need a large panoply of policies. So heat reflecting paint, maybe one thing. We know from southern countries that in general, they have, when you think of Greece, when you think of Spain, they have a specific way of building, of painting, of building houses. I think in France, in Germany, we have to inspire our buildings probably from parts that are more southern. We had this debate about cooling. Of course, we will have to have more cooling. So these all are technical measures, and they are important. But I think more fundamentally, we have to rethink our infrastructures in order to adapt for warmer and climate neutral societies. And so a question would be, what place of individual cars, for example, in the cities, which add, of course, to the heat stress, which add also to the particles pollution, and which emit CO2. What place of green zones, of waterways in cities. So rethinking urbanism in order to adapt to greener cities. So technologies are important, but also I think these kinds of more structural measures.
And Stefan, finally, in 2015, nearly 200 governments signed on to the Paris Agreement to limit global warming. 11 years later, where has that optimism gone, and can we get it back?
Yes, we live in a very different world now. 2015, at the moment of the Paris Agreement, I think I don't have to remind. We just heard some of the examples in the program today. So trade wars, real wars, and the time doesn't seem ripe or doesn't seem the moment for international collaboration. I think also the instruments of the Paris Agreement, some of them have worked. So countries have submitted climate plans. Most countries now have climate policies. But at the same time, we see a backlash, a rollback in some countries, of course, first of all, the US, but also many, for example, now Southern American countries. Europe has had many challenges from within. So we are in very troubled, very difficult waters. I still think that the technologies are much riper. For example, today, solar batteries, etc., are very cheap compared to 2015. We have had huge youth movements, and I think we have policies in place that we have to, and also laws in place that we have to defend. And I think from that energy over time, we have to build a new climate policy, a new climate movement. At the moment, I feel like much has to be done to protect what we have already and to try to expand, to try to build on these regulations. For example, the European Green Deal, which has been a huge success, a very important program, but which is slowly dismantled since it was adopted in 2019. So we have to really build on these achievements and try to reinforce them first locally, then nationally, and then again globally. Perhaps one thing that gives me hope to finish on that was the conference on the transition away from fossil fuels, which was held this year. So there has been now in Santa Marta in Colombia, and so there is a process now globally that explicitly names the main culprit of climate change, which is fossil fuels, and tries to find ways to phase out fossil fuels. So these are things that we have to pursue, that the EU, that Germany, that France should support much stronger than they do now.
Stefan, thank you very much for speaking with us today on the program. That's Stefan Eye-cot, professor of sociology at the University of Hamburg.